Hey everybody, welcome back to another Ikigai Leadership Podcast. I'm here with my good friend, Jeff Yukikazu Sera. Actually, his new friend, but also feels like I've known you for a long time, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Drew. It's a pleasure to be
Yeah,
here. And yeah, like you said, a new friend, but I feel like I've known you for a while.
yeah, absolutely, man. So, Jeff is the owner slash practitioner, Reiki practitioner at Food for Thought, and we had some really cool conversations. And we'll just jump right in and talk about it. Jeff, first, tell us a little bit about Reiki and about what your journey's been like getting to where you are.
Yeah, so Reiki's so interesting. It is the life force that just exists around us, right? So the example that I like to use is if you've ever stood in like a parking garage where it's just cold concrete. There's just nothing around. There's that feeling of kind of just cold isolation. Versus if you were to go stand outside in a forest, or if you were to be out in nature, there's a distinct kind of energetic feeling. And so what Reiki is really drawing in that life force energy into the practitioner. And then what we do is we channel that into the patient, or ourselves. And so it's taking that energy that exists in the environment around us, channeling it for different purposes. And it's interesting. So the way I explain it is distinctly different than how it's explained in Japan. And when I shared this with a Reiki master in Japan, she was like, "Oh, that's so interesting. It's a very Western way of thinking about it."
Mm,
Where when I break it down, it was like the purpose I use Reiki for is clearing like a chakra blockage, or healing of the physical body, or supporting with the moving or removal of negative emotions. And in Japan, they're like, "Oh yeah, it's all of that simultaneously. It's not one or the other." And so that's essentially like a brief kind of breakdown of what Reiki is, in
yeah,
my
that's
understanding.
awesome. That's really fascinating, man. I mean, and it may sound kind of new agey or whatever to some folks, but I mean, honestly, I was not really into that, into like this more. People say Eastern medicine, but it's like Eastern practices, whatever. Right? I mean, it's just I don't know if it's Eastern or Western. I mean, I know Reiki, the Japanese, is a Japanese name, and like practitioners over there do it a lot more. But I don't. It's like one of those things where I don't like distinguishing between East and West as much as like just practices, right? I don't know if
It's,
that makes sense.
I think that's a human way of looking at it,
Yeah.
where we're distinguishing, it's just human energy, it's life energy, it's not specific to a specific region, right?
Right.
The modality itself comes from Japan. And what's interesting that I learned recently was, um, before World War II, every individual that was a part of the Japanese Navy was actually trained in the art of Reiki. It was like a
Hmm.
mandatory practice. And
Wow.
after the US occupied Japan, they recognized how powerful it was, and they made it illegal to practice because they didn't
Mhm.
want the Japanese to have this power. So then it became something that went underground, and it was rediscovered. And then somebody in Japan taught somebody in Hawaii. That individual in Hawaii then brought it back to the mainland US, and then it adapted and became a Western practice, where in
Mhm.
Japan it kind of faded away, and then in the US it kind of um, gained traction and popularity. And so now we're at a point where it's I went to Japan actually, yeah, earlier this year, and I was gonna go seek out knowledge around Reiki, and I'm like, cool, this is the birthplace of it. Let me find out a lot. It'll be easy. I
Yeah.
was walking around asking people, like, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. So then I'm
Yeah.
teaching people about Reiki, and I'm like, this is backwards, right? And so it's a lost art that's coming back around. And the practitioner, the master I met in Japan, her goal is to really spread awareness and kind of revive it, which is similar to the mission that I'm on.
Yeah.
Well,
That's amazing, dude. Because like, yeah, even when I was talking to my Japanese friend about it, after we talked, actually, that's like second and third time,
mhm.
I was talking to my friend about it, and I was like mentioning Reiki and stuff, and he's like, "What's Reiki?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're Japanese. You should know. You should know more than I do. What are you talking about?"
Exactly.
Like, it's so weird.
To be
But I
fair,
mean,
I learned about it in the last like 2 years, right?
mm.
Prior to that, it was like I just thought it was something that white ladies did.
Pretty much, yeah. No, like legit. That's what my impression of it was before I learned more about it, and a couple years ago. But I never did a deeper dive, right? I never like did like a look below the surface until really you and I started talking more about it and about
Mm.
the kind of the similarities between it and other kinds of philosophies and stuff, which is really cool. It
Yeah, I think
reminds me of good.
there's a lot of similarity between like Reiki, Qigong, and Prana. They're
Hmm.
they're just different modalities in different countries, but I think we're all talking about the same energy.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to mention like that actually that's a good segue. It wasn't planned, but in terms of like the similarity between practices in like yoga and like the Vedic practices in India, right? It's so fascinating how, and what something we talked about last time was like how these practices evolved separately on totally different parts of the world, right? Where
Yep.
they otherwise wouldn't really touch. And I mean, Japan's an island, right? So it's completely cut
Yeah.
off physically, geographically before, ships and whatnot, which is when this stuff was created. It's
Yeah.
just super cool.
It's so interesting how everyone kind of just picked up and like, hey, there's something there, right? But when you really pay attention, and I think this is what we've lost is but being aware of your own body, right? Both
Hmm.
physically, energetically, and all those things. Like when you really sit with it and you pay attention, your body tells you a lot. You get a lot of information. But in today's society, we're numb to that, right? We're shutting all that out. We're fully engulfed in our phones. It's like I want my phone to tell me something. I want my
Yeah.
phone to tell me my vitals, so I'm going to wear this thing that'll tell me what my heart rate is. Versus, hey, what if you just stop and listen? Like you'll feel it.
Right. Everything has to be on the go. Everything has to be like, you never stop and, quotes Ferris Bueller, stop and smell the roses, right? Like you're not,
Yeah,
we don't take any time for that. And one of the practices I do with my clients when I work with them is we go through a centering exercise at the beginning of our conversations, right?
yep,
Just to
yeah,
let go of the crap from before whatever's happening the rest of the day, and kind of go through that and just like reset for whatever we're talking about now. And most of my clients actually tell me that they, outside of our sessions, they start doing that elsewhere, right? So
yeah.
they'll like start like, level setting. But what people, I don't think what people get, that they get the mind part, right? The idea about calming the mind, but I don't think they get the idea about that it's energy. It's calming everything, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I do that the same way, right? When we start a session, it's like let's ground, right? So putting down everything from before that you were working on and anything you're worrying about after this, like bring yourself to this present moment so that we can focus on the here and now and what we want to talk about. And like you said, right, really connecting not just the mind, but the body, the physical body, not just and all parts of it, right? So the mind, body, spirit, it's all intertwined. And again, going back to the Japanese modality of how they look at it, it is all one thing. It's one being. Whereas over
Yeah.
here, we look at those as like compartmentalized aspects of ourselves.
Yeah. So what's the biggest challenge you have when you're dealing with your clients? And actually, let me back up. Are most of your clients people who are familiar with Reiki, or are the people like they're new to it, or about 50-50?
So it's interesting. I I'm still trying to figure out how to merge the two, right?
Mm,
So with my coaching as a self-development sensei, I focus primarily on the mindset.
hmm.
Now, at the same time, there's an energetic exchange in any of my sessions with my clients, right? I'm
Right.
directing focus on them. I'm present in that moment in that conversation. So they're still receiving a level of energy from me. It's not I don't like express that and be like, "Hey, I'm going to do Reiki during all of our sessions," but I know it's flowing from me. Now,
Sure.
what I do offer is a VIP day, which is very specific to, like during an 8 hour session, I will allocate time directly for Reiki. It's like, hey, well, I'm going to,
Mm.
perform Reiki on you as part of this package. And so, going back to your question of what was your question?
So in terms of people you serve, right? Like, are they mostly people who already know about Reiki, or the people who didn't know about it, or about the same amount, both sides?
Yeah, no. Most people in general that I interact with aren't familiar with Reiki, other than what they see me post on my social media or talk about. Really,
Hmm.
um, it's more about really educating people around it. And again, right, like kind of the topic we were talking about was like I'm very analytical. I like to
Hmm.
have very logical explanations for things, and this goes entirely against that
Yeah.
because there's not always this tangible proof where if I have a headache and I take an aspirin, after a certain amount of time, it's like poof, it's gone, right? So I think what we always look for is we want that instant gratification. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're gonna heal me with Reiki? Okay, I have a broken arm, fix it, right? Like that's what
Right.
people are looking for or expecting, versus the body is always working to regenerate and heal itself, right?
Hmm.
And so if you get a cut on your arm, your body and your skin will start to do the things to repair itself, but you're not paying attention. You don't always notice that, right? It's just automatic. If you meditate and you're telling yourself like, hey, I want to send more resources, I want to send more energy to this area to heal it, your body will do that. Reiki then comes in and it's like an external version of that. So if you were hurt and you had an injury, right, I could come perform Reiki on you, and what I'm doing is I'm supporting your body with what it's already doing by
Hmm.
sharing the energy from around us to direct it to that specific area. So it's not like this magical cure all thing that just poof fixes the problem. It just supports what's already ongoing in our body. And I think that's the distinction where, it's hard to quantify how effective a session is. I've also had experiences where if I'm distracted or there's things going on in my life and I'm in my head during, a Reiki session, I don't feel as connected. Like I know
Mm,
I'm not performing at the highest potential of what I'm capable of when I'm transferring that energy versus when, I have a clear mind and I'm present. I can feel my entire body heat up, not just my hands and the area that I'm kind of directing the energy to. So it's very interesting to kind of have that be the case. And for me, when I started this, it was like, how do I know it's working? And
yeah.
I would take notes. I would literally log like a day and a time that I performed Reiki on somebody and what the intention was. And then I'd follow up and check in and be like, hey, how's it going?
Hmm.
Um, One example of this is my mom. She's super skeptical about any of this. I remember one time I went to my parents' house. I did an oracle reading for my dad, and she's like, she left the room. She's like, I don't even want to be here for this shit. Like, I don't know what the fuck you guys are doing, but I'm out, right? So there was a time we were in Japan, and she was like, I was like, hey, would you like some Reiki? Because she had recently kind of had some injuries, and I was like, is there an area you want me to put some focus? She's like, well, my knees are kind of bothering me, so I did some Reiki on her knees.
Hmm.
And she was like laughing. She's like, "This is so weird, right?" She's like uncomfortable, like, ugh. And then afterwards, it's like I did the thing. I left. I went to bed. The next day, everyone was kind of doing their own things. I went off somewhere else. She went to go explore, and she was walking around all day.
Hmm.
When she came home later, she's like, "Yo, I don't know what you did, but I was walking around all day, and I felt fine. Like my knees were great." And so it was, like that was for me. I had to log that one. I was like, oh, cool. Like mom's skeptical about this shit. So if there's effect for her, then it's not just this placebo thing where, because some people are like
Yeah.
super into it and they're like, oh, yeah, it was so magical. Right. So having these data points for myself helped kind of the analyzer calm down to be like, yeah, like there is a very real tangible effect that this has.
Yeah, that's super. I mean, dude, that's super interesting because I mean, and if you think about it from that point of view, and through that, those case study kind of things, right? It can be an incredibly powerful tool, right? If used properly and that kind of thing. And so you can understand why like people might be afraid of other people having it. And that reminds me of like and this is a little bit off topic, but sort of though. Uh, so the CIA just declassified like that whole I think it was I forgot what it's called now, but it was the mind the controlling the mind thing that they talked about, and like where it's like
Um, like
unlocking human
telepathy kind
potential.
of, or
Yeah, it's like basically unlocking human potential, right?
yeah,
And I'm
like the,
wondering, and,
the third
and
eye, right?
yeah, essentially, yeah,
Yeah.
and so that they're like, there's a ton of research on this, and they just declassified it, which I don't know, why they would do that, but there are still parts of it that are missing, right?
Mm.
Like pages that are mysteriously, can't be found or whatever, and those are like obviously going to be key pages of like what to do specifically. But makes me think of like of those kind of things where like the US government or some other, controlling power at the time becomes aware of another technology or tool or whatever, and then just kills it or stifles it or like gets rid of it because they're afraid of it, right? And how much of that must have happened over the course of human history?
Stop me if you want at all, but
No, go ahead, please, by
uh,
all means. I open
with
whatever this is. I open the door, so go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with myself and in the last few years and just being aware of all these things, right? I switched my toothpaste brand.
Hmm.
So I'm not using, your regular Colgate or Crest or any of that shit anymore because of the fluoride content. I've
Hmm.
switched to more organic stuff just because I know that fluoride, the intention behind it, or it's not just good for your teeth, but it really does calcify and block the third eye,
Yeah, I've
right?
heard about
And
this too.
so
Yeah.
your pineal gland gets blocked. So again, all those abilities and the human gifts that we naturally have, if you really take the time and focus on kind of the spirituality and the woo woo shit,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about, right? Like these powers and things that most people can't perceive or understand. A lot of us are actually walking around with those abilities and gifts, and it's hard to talk about with your everyday average person because they're like, "The fuck are you talking about?" Right? Like
Yeah.
I have heightened levels of empathy, and that's hard to explain to somebody. Like, hey, I feel what you're feeling. You don't need to tell me like I'm present to it. Or there's people that are psychic and they can actually they get downloads or they can read your mind or they can just get intuitive hits and all these other things, right? And
Right.
if not everyone is aligned to it, like we all agree that our eyes see because every human being with few exceptions is able to do that, right?
Right.
These other gifts people are more skeptical of because it's like, again, we have this closed-minded perception. If I can't do it, then why can you, right?
Yeah.
What we don't realize is, yeah, when you tune into those things you can. And so it's so interesting to have, like you said, the powers that be come in and kind of make these more difficult or less accessible And again, what I find is it's really about the money, right? Like if
Hmm.
I'm able to perform Reiki on myself, I don't need to go to a Western doctor. I don't need to buy
Right.
medicines. Literally, when I'm sick, I'll do this shit to myself, right? I'll do my own Reiki. It supports with stress, it supports with anxiety, which reduces my need for any type of external medications, right? Even
Right.
with like recreational drugs, like a lot of that I've been able to step away from and tone down, where it's more of a holistic practice than like a crutch.
Yeah.
And again, if that's the case, then I'm not spending money for the corporations, and so it doesn't serve the purpose of what they exist for.
Right. No, dude, I totally agree with you. I mean, I still use a toothpaste because the regular toothpaste. 'Cause I haven't found another one that I like, but
I'll send you some
it,
links.
yeah, please do, please do. But no, I've been reading about that, about the pineal gland and how it's blocked by fluoride, and they pump it into the water, they pump it into like it's so like you know it's like the whole milk conspiracy thing, right? Where like milk is so good for you, but it's really just about saving. It was that whole
For your
milk does
bones.
a body good was like just to like
Yeah.
basically save the milk industry, right? Because no one was drinking
Yeah.
milk.
And so I remember growing up thinking that, and then one day I remember I literally remember the day that I realized I was lactose intolerant, because I was like, I would drink cups of milk, right? Like that was just part of dinner in my
Yeah.
household. And then after dinner, I'm burping all the time. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what is this shift that's happening, right? And I was probably a teenager or something around that time. So something with my puberty just hit, and it was like, yeah, all of a sudden I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah. It's this, and then and again, what else? The allergies, dude. Allergies are a big deal in this country, right? Not that I've lived anywhere else for any extended period of time, but I know my dad and a bunch of people told me actually that they didn't have allergies till they moved to this country, till they moved to
That's
here.
yeah. I
I,
don't
I
I haven't done much research, and I don't know too much about that, but I know, yeah,
if
that's
you talk to most people that and I've had this conversation with several people, specifically from um, either the island, like the equator area, like the Caribbean or something like that,
okay.
or countries like non-civilized countries, so to speak, right? Where they don't have as much running water or whatever, things like that, like that kind of infrastructure. I've
I'm
noticed was a common thread in those places.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's a like an evolution thing,
Hmm.
like people that had those allergies just died out in other countries, and then here we're like kind of catering to it and making
Hmm.
those exceptions, so then the genes pass on, or if it is something like something chemical, right? Something in your body that we're ingesting that makes it so you have these bad reactions to these other things. That one I'm not too sure about, but that is interesting to see that as the
Yeah,
that
because it's really fascinating. Even people from India, I know I've talked to who have moved here, right? Because they technically have running water there, but they also have like tons of
mm,
bacteria that can kill you, right? And so they don't have as much stuff in the purifying the water there. But I mean, I wonder if how much of that with that purification, what the cost of that is, right? Because we go to India and we'll get dysentery, if you drink the water there, right? But like they can drink the water here and be fine,
yeah,
right?
interesting. Yeah,
And
I I
it's different
there's
bacteria, it's different kind of things, but it should have the same effect the other way around, right? You would think.
that's curious. I did in 2017 I went on a trip to Thailand, and
Mhm.
like there's a lot of warning and advisories like, hey, tourists, do not drink any water, only drink bottled water. Don't get
Right,
ice. That shit'll fuck you up. And I was like, okay, don't drink the water. We went
right.
on this like not excursion, but we went on this kind of thing. We went up this mountain in like a rickshaw. We get to the top, and there's this huge vat of water, and the condensation is just outside it. And I was like, oh, that looks so good. And I went up to it, filled up a cup. I go back to my table. I'm sipping on it. I put it down the table. And all my boys look at me. They're like, "Did you just drink that?" And I was like, "Oh fuck!"
Yeah.
for for 24 hours straight, I just had massive food poisoning. I was literally on the
Oh,
toilet with a garbage pail in my lap, like for 24 hours. Just I thought I was dying. I was literally in the bathroom googling like hospitals nearby. And I'm like,
yeah.
what
Oh
does
my god.
insurance look like in Thailand? But again, after 48 hours, it just flushed out of me. And then I was
Yeah.
fine. And then we carried on with the trip. And I was like, oh, thank God. I thought it was like, oh, I ruined the whole vacation. But 24 hours, it cleared my system. After that, I was like, I felt like I had an iron stomach.
Yeah.
Like nothing rattles me. Like anything in America, it's like, I can eat that. It's got a little mold on it. I'll be fine. I've had food poisoning in
Had
Thailand.
worse. Yeah. He's like, I probably have still have bacteria in there living in my stomach from Thailand. Yeah. I had the similar experience. I mean, I didn't actually funny thing, I actually I had the water in India and I didn't die. I didn't it was like a total accident. I actually ended up drinking water, but it was bottled water, but it had ice in it. And then back
Okay.
then we
Oh,
didn't think about the whole ice thing until you got iced in the bad way. And so I was like, shit. And so I was like worried about it like the whole night, and nothing happened. And I was like, what the heck's going on?
okay.
Turns out when I get back to the US, shortly thereafter, because I used to get really, really bad reflux, right? Shortly
Yeah.
after, I got diagnosed with severe acid reflux to the point where I had like Barrett's esophagus, which is like a precancerous thing because I
Damn.
had so much acid in my stomach. But the amount of acid actually probably saved me because it actually killed the bacteria.
Oh, that's interesting.
So weird,
Yeah.
dude.
The
Yeah,
human
but
body is very interesting.
it's fascinating, man. It really is because it's one of those things where people don't realize the stomach is like the core of the immune system, right? It's like a very
Mhm.
big part of the immune system, and if we keep ingesting stuff that's like highly modified or highly has a ton of chemicals or whatever in it, what are we doing to that stomach and to the way we process food, right? Like that's a key ingredient.
Yeah, I remember growing up, I had like OCD, and like my dad was always a neat freak, so it was like, always wash your hands when you come in from outside before you eat and all these things. And so I remember thinking just dirt was just dirty, right? So
Yeah,
and then at some point it just sometime in my adulthood, I was just sitting there thinking like, what's really bad about like dirt? It's just when you break it down, it's really just something. It's not like bad for you versus like chemicals, or other like biological matter that contains viruses or other bacteria that could be really bad for you. But dirt itself,
right.
I had this perception, and I don't know if that comes from society, the culture, or just from my dad, but it's so interesting how we perceive things, right? Like if you drop food on the floor, it's like, oh, that's gross, don't eat it. But it's like, but where are you? Right?
Right, right.
If I'm in a hospital, yeah, probably not the best idea. But if you're outside, like, I don't think if you dropped a hot dog in dirt and you picked it up and ate it, I don't think it would be bad for you or kill you. We have this
Yeah.
perception it's nasty and it's gross, but really, what's bad about it? Like, I'm not sure.
So for me, I mean, the way my family grew up, I mean, we're obviously Asian as well, right? So we're Indian, but we think about when we think about dirt, it's less of, I mean, we did have that whole if it fell on the floor, even in the house, it was gross, whatever, that kind of thing, right? That was still in our
Yeah,
heads. But as far as like outside, the way I thought about it was always like the dirt itself is not dirty, but it's people stepping there that makes it dirty, right? Because they walked everywhere. And like why we don't bring shoes in our house, right? Why it's like, I watch these movies, dude, and my fiance and I both laugh. We both like laugh. We're like every time that we see people with their feet with shoes on the bed, it's just like, oh, dude, come on, man.
like, have you ever been in a public bathroom? Because that's all on your bed now.
And like one scene earlier, they were in a public bathroom, and then they walk into and I'm like, oh, come on, dude. Like, I can't. I just can't. I can't. Anyway, I just totally unrelated to what we're talking about. Sorry, but
Yeah, we went on
back
a
to
huge
Reiki.
tangent.
We went on a huge tangent. Sorry. But back to Reiki, yes. But it came back to energy though. That's what we're talking about, right? Managing your energy
Okay,
in
yeah.
the body and the way the body functions. That's how we got into this tangent. Um,
Yeah, it's there was so I participate in like a Reiki group. And
mhm,
so what it is there's a group of Japanese Americans. There's actually two that I'm a part of. And what we do is we get together and they'll have one or two tables set up depending on how many of us are there.
mhm.
And one at a time or two at a time, one person will be on the table and then everyone around them will send them Reiki. And so
Oh,
it's kind of a cool way to practice it. And it does also kind of I think take some of the pressure off because I know when I'm performing Reiki solo, I'm like, oh, I got to be focused and I really got to deliver for this individual because it's just me and them.
yeah,
Versus in a group setting, it's like we're all sending that energy, so there's less of that pressure. Now, what's interesting that somebody shared during that was one of the somebody from before that used to participate in this. She lived, I forget how old, but she lived a really long time, and they would joke like, yeah, she lived so long, but she ate terribly, but she made up for it and she justified it because she would just Reiki her food. Like anything she would eat beforehand, she just give it a little bit of Reiki and then she would ingest it. And I was like, oh, that's
wow.
interesting.
Talk about a
But
cheat code.
yeah, right. And I mean, people have done those studies with water, right? It's like you have two jars of water, one you talk shit to and one you send
Hmm.
like affirmations to. And then there's different things that'll happen. One will form, like this really dark bacteria, and the other one will just stay as it is. Or they've also done studies on like the molecular breakdown of, water in those similar studies, and it has an effect. So the
Yeah,
energy we put into things actually can create something for us. So same with our food. And I'm like, it's so again so simple, right? Like I know this, And in my head, I'm like, anytime I get a new cup of water, I should give it some Reiki, and I still haven't done it. I think it's just the right this conditioning that we have. It's like that takes too much time. But really, how
Yeah,
much time does that take me, and what does it cost me? It costs me nothing, and it could
right.
add years to my life, right?
That's amazing, dude. Like that concept to me is so like fascinating because, like I said, it's a cheat code, right? Think about it. Like if you eat something that's like bad for you, like but tastes amazing, and just if you thought about like just let me add Reiki to this, or like actually change the energy that it has in it, right? Like, and then before I ingest it, like I don't know, it just it's really it's almost like too good to be true. But I feel like the other part of it too, though, like you said, it's something that not a lot of people are going to do, right? They're not going to take the time, especially nowadays. Everyone's everything in a hurry, quick fix, silver bullet, whatever it is, that they'll take 15 pills before they go to the gym once, right? And they'll take 15 pills every morning for like 7 years, and then they won't go. They still won't go to the gym,
Yeah.
but they'll
And I'm
spend
glad
like
we had this
thousands of dollars.
conversation because I think from now on I will be raking my water.
You guys teach
Because
me how
it's
to do
right.
that.
It's such a simple thing. And so have you done a level 1 Reiki yet?
No, I've done nothing related to Reiki at all. I'm actually really interested though.
I'm gonna connect you with my master.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Appreciate it,
She's
dude.
amazing. And then in Japan, that we'll connect in Japan too, and I'll get you in touch with my
Yeah.
master as well. We just gotta brush up on our Japanese. She
Oh
only
yeah.
speaks Japanese, so
Okay, then yeah, we have to. I definitely have to brush up my Japanese. I've been working on it. I've been pretty diligent with Duolingo, So but I need to get like 10 times better than I am right now.
yeah,
Or
I'm leveled up in Duolingo, but conversationally, I'm not putting into practice. Right? I'm like, I'll do the
exactly.
act, but so you and I get to have conversations in Japanese.
I'm down. Let's do it, man. And then,
Oh
like I
yeah,
said,
we will.
when you connect with different folks that I connect you with, you can definitely talk to them in Japanese because they're all Japanese over there. So
See,
yeah,
that's the problem because I've taken 4 level 1 Japanese classes, and I always thought going in, I'm like, "Oh, like, the teacher's gonna love me because 'cause I'm Japanese, right?" They hated me. I was I was, like, so shameful. They're like, "Why are you here?" Like, they're like,
it's
"I no."
like the wrong kind of bias, right? It's like this guy should already
Yeah,
speak
yeah, they were
Japanese.
so
Like
upset. They're like, "You don't what why are you in level 1?" And then they'd listen to me and they're like, "Your pronunciation is great, but your vocabulary is like a child. Like, what is going on?"
dude, that's so funny.
4 level 1s because I failed 3 of them.
Oh man. Wow, that's yeah. I need to get back into it as well because I mean that's something I really want to get good at is Japanese and stuff. So because we'll chat more about that about later, but there's definitely some opportunities coming up over there, which should be pretty cool.
Yeah. I definitely because I have a master in the US, but I
Hmm.
definitely want to also learn like the way that they practice Reiki in Japan because it's the same but it's different.
Hmm.
There's just different aspects, different philosophies. Again, it's rooted in the same thing, but completely different kind of I guess not even approaches, but there's just these subtle differences that make it very impactfully unique.
I imagine it's probably more subtle than the difference between practicing yoga in America versus India because those are massive differences sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious because I'm not familiar with yoga in either.
Well, I mean, I just meant by the idea of the folks. Like, first of all, the yoga classes I've been to, I have yet to go to one taught by an Indian person ever. I've been dragged to many yoga classes in my life, and I say dragged intentionally because I've never gone intentionally, except for like maybe like once in college, and that was
Yeah.
because I thought I could meet girls there. That was basically my only reason of going there back then. Um, but I've not been to one taught by a single Indian person at all, and every white person I have yet to meet one white person who teaches those classes who pronounces namaste properly.
Namaste.
They all say namaste
Yeah. How do you say
and
it?
namaste.
Namaste.
Yeah, there you go. You got it. They
Namaste.
apparently have problems. They say namaste, 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 and I'm
When I
like,
do these networking events and I meet other Reiki practitioners and some of them are saying it wrong, it's like I'm trying not to cringe. Like,
exactly right. It's like,
Reiki? Like what?
dude, I how do you even mispronounce Reiki? How do you do that?
I have heard several ways that people are pronouncing it where it's like the I is an E or they're leaving letters out. It's so I don't
Oh god,
know. And then it just makes me question everything else. Like, yeah, like who taught you and what are you actually doing?
exactly. But that's the thing, right? That's what makes me think about it too. Is like if you're pronouncing this, like the pronunciation is the easiest thing about yoga. Honestly, it's not that difficult. Like I mean, things they look pretty complicated sometimes, but just once you hear him right a couple times, it should be easy, right?
Yeah.
So it just boggles my mind. And then that, and also the chai tea thing pisses me off a lot because
How do you
it's
say it?
it's just chai. Chai tea means tea.
TT.
Chai means tea in Hindi.
Oh, shit.
It's like saying
TT.
green tea.
Green TT. Oh yeah.
Or
That's
matcha tea, for example, right? Like matcha is tea, right? It's a green tea. It's a certain kind of tea, right? It's the same thing.
Chai
It's like,
tea.
can I
Chai
get a chai tea,
tea.
please? Like, please stop. Like, I actually commented back on Oprah. Oprah posted one time on Twitter, like, check out my chai tea or something like that. And I replied, like, come on, Oprah, you can do better than this. She never responded, obviously, but I was like, it's
Oh, that's
just,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I love about my Reiki master though. She's very good about respecting the culture. Like
mm,
it's part of the way that she operates. And so that's actually how I connected with her because she offered her course free of charge to anybody of Japanese lineage because she
oh, wow.
wants to bring it back and connect it to its roots. So I was like, when I met her, I'm like, this feels so aligned for many reasons. And then that was just like the icing on the cake. I'm like, yeah, you and I are working together.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rare to find people like that who actually care enough about that. Because the other part of it too is to think about is that, like, I mean, like you said, the practice in Japan, for example, right, is very different from the practice here, or not very different, but subtly different from the practice here, right?
Right.
And that's true. I think partially part of it is that the culture that people are immersed in on a day-to-day basis, because that happens. I think, all jokes aside about yoga, I think the same thing happens there too, right?
Yeah.
Like, yoga is applied very differently here than it is over there. Yogic practice in India is a lifestyle. It's a mindset. It's everything. It's life. It's a life practice. It's not just I'm going to go to yoga class for an hour and then I'm good for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
It like goes into your breathing, on your walking, the way you move, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you operate. And from the way I've heard people talk about Reiki masters, it sounds like it's a similar thing for them. Like, it's a way of life. It's not just I'm going to teach a class at noon and then I'm off with the rest of my day.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's and so I'm cautious of what I say publicly or especially, on a platform like this because there are aspects of Reiki that my master has shared with me that she says that we're not supposed to expose to anybody that hasn't actually officially trained in it, right? So
Mm,
it's like if you just go and Google it and then you try to perform it, it's not the same as having the lesson or the modality passed down to you from a master.
yes,
And so there's these levels of respect and not secrecy, but just like being very intentional with the information, right? So
I love that
there's
actually.
there's symbols that are a part of Reiki, and
Hmm.
those symbols, I was taught we're not supposed to say out loud or show like visually to anybody that is not trained in the art of Reiki. And again,
Mm,
it's not because it's a secret thing. You go online, you could find them, but it's more of like the level of respect and
right.
making sure it's not going to be abused, right, or commercialized or whitewashed.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually love that because exactly what you just said. It's a respect for it, and it's not about saying like, "Oh, we need to keep the secrets." I mean, it is partially, honestly, because it's like you have to earn that, right? You have to earn that the opportunity to be exposed to that knowledge. Because back then, knowledge was power, and it was passed only to people who were worthy of learning it. Like, you had to that respect for apprenticeship. I think is really lacking in frankly in our culture here across the US and most of the Western world, I would say. And I'm saying Western because, obviously Europe and its derivatives, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't have the same respect for learning from someone else as opposed to just learning it in school and some, being taught by someone who's doing it and then doing it in practice. I think that's lost a lot in the way we operate today.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's again, like most of everything has just been commercialized.
Hmm.
Um, and we've lost a lot of, I guess, really the honor and the pride in things. And so it's interesting. So growing up in San Jose, California, I am surrounded by Vietnamese Americans
Hmm.
and they love their tattoos. A lot of the tattoo styles are in the Japanese Yakuza fashion, right?
Hmm.
Literally all my boys are tatted up, sleeved up. They got legs, they got back pieces. I'm the odd one out and I'm the Japanese American one, right?
Hmm.
But growing up, I always felt like I want to earn my ink, right? Like one of my closest friends is a tattoo artist and he's a well-known artist out here in San Jose. And again, I just felt like I want to reach a certain milestone or point in my life where I felt like I've earned it. Because in
Hmm.
Japan, right? Like you don't just get Yakuza tattoos. Like you
Right.
earn those through, well, the way they earn theirs is different, right? It's through like a
Yeah.
life of crime and you do
Right.
different things. But over here, I just felt like I wanted to have my own version of it. And now the way things are, right? Like everybody has tattoos,
Yeah.
and there's no meaning behind it anymore. It's like a screensaver on your phone, but it's like that's your body, like if you don't respect your body in the same way and you're not being intentional with these things, it's like your own self-respect goes down in the way that we carry ourselves. So I always found that interesting because it used to be a joke, right? We'd go to pool parties and shit, and it's like I look naked, right? Take my shirt off, and I look like a little kid. And all my boys are sleeved up, and it's just like it is what it is.
Yeah, dude. It's funny because we keep saying we have a lot of similarities, and we absolutely do. Because even that belief, because when I was growing up, I was like, oh, it's cool to have a tattoo. It would be cool one day to have a tattoo, but I can't decide on something meaningful enough, right? Where I feel like I've one sort of earned it, but also like something that I want to put on my body because I think my body is something I want to take care of, right? And like for it to be on my body has to mean something, right? And I have to be able to say that that thing is worth getting or was worth getting or whatever. And
Yeah.
so it's like for me, I got this actually last year, believe it or not. So this is my
Okay. Yeah.
dog.
Never seen that.
Um,
Is
and so
that's his
it's
actual
just
paw print?
no, it was too big. That was too small to put on here. So I had to get a little bigger. But that's its
Okay.
face. His if you I don't know if you can see the detail. It's kind of weird angle, but
Is that a tongue?
it's yeah. This is a tongue.
Okay.
It fits that way. Yeah. So it's like
Oh, that's pretty
vertical,
cool.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So that I mean they did a really good job with it because but I mean like that was this something the first like really thing that I love that actually loved me more than love itself, right? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
dogs are.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, I'll get this,
There's meaning behind it, right? And there's memories and it's yeah.
Yeah,
There's
it's
it's
meaningful enough for me.
purposeful. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting concept because it's not like you said, I feel like it's things are just too easy sometimes. And when things
Yeah.
come too easily, they're just not appreciated. Like people can just, like, I turned 18, I'm getting a tattoo. And what are you getting a tattoo of? I don't know. It'd be funny to get a tattoo of something stupid, like no regrets. It's just, and then that happens. So
Yeah. And not to knock anybody that's into that, right? It's just like
no, not at all.
just
I
me
mean,
personally, it's like I feel like, and again, this is one thing I'm working through again as a self-development coach. It's like I always try to make things harder than it needs to be for myself because I
mm,
always feel like I want to earn it. And
yeah,
at the same time, there's elements like with something like this with the tattoo, I feel like that's perfectly fine and healthy versus when I'm self-sabotaging in my career or my relationships or something along those lines because I'm feeling like I'm compensating for something, right? If it's not hard, I haven't earned it. If I'm not
yep,
working super hard, I haven't earned it. What I haven't what I've realized and recognized is like I have certain abilities that make certain things easy for me compared to somebody else. But when I'm
yep.
comparing it, I'm like, well, if they struggled with it, I should struggle with it. So then I create these barriers and these hurdles for myself. That's like, why did I go about it that way? It's actually very simple and straightforward. So that awareness supports me in that. And again, we're diverging. I don't know how I got here.
It's the wrong kind of equity, but you're saying, I mean, I believe it or not, I do exactly what you're doing right now. And I actually only recently have started working on that actively. A good friend of mine, we went to school together for coaching and we coach each other all the time. And
Mm,
she actually helped me like point that out. It's like, you're intentionally making things harder for yourself because it's like, because you want to earn it because you don't think because it can't come easy. You think you really can't. If it doesn't come easy, if it comes easy, it's not worth having. And I'm like,
yeah.
shit.
I
That's
feel like that's from our parents somehow.
no, it 100%. It's a cultural like it's raised. We're raised that way for whatever reason, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like because you know what? Actually, I think part of it. I think part of it is our parents. I think part of it, at least for me, is I don't know if you align with this, but part of me for me is that I always want to keep getting better and better at things, right?
Yeah.
And so the route that gets me the most development is the route that I'm going to go. And sometimes I work too hard, maybe subconsciously, to create that route so that I gain more out of that experience that I don't think I would otherwise.
Yeah. It's
And
it's like
it's
an
good to a
addiction
point.
to
Yeah, yeah,
to the hard path. Like, yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying.
yeah.
It's
It's
so interesting though, because it's like, what's your way of overcoming that?
so I've started to remind myself that I want it to be easier because
Yeah,
you get tired. You get tired of things being hard, right? Because sometimes you think things are going to be a slam dunk, and then they end up not being that way, and you're like, "What the hell? Why not?" Because when you need them to be easy, because sometimes you do need them to be easy. And otherwise, things that should be easy are not easy anymore because you've made everything so difficult.
Yeah. I think for me, what I've tried to shift to, number one, is just being aware of it, right? Like,
Hmm.
hey, what is the thing? Am I making it harder for myself, or is it actually very simple? And then the other aspect is I try to I try to integrate more fun to just be
Mm,
like, right, life is about the journey and not the destination. So it's like most of it's the journey, so I might as well enjoy that part of it. How do I make whatever I'm doing fun? And then once you're
mm.
having fun, then things get easier because you're enjoying it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that
So
a
that's
lot. Yeah,
that's been
because
supportive-ish for me. But it's still times when I'm like, oh fuck, I made that harder for myself than it needed to be.
yeah, I think the other part of it's self criticality afterwards too, right? When you realize that you did it already, I also we tend to be more self critical and blame ourselves for it, and instead of like looking back, okay, well next time I'll do this and focus on the future. You know,
Yeah, like not going into that self beat up, but just using it as a lesson. Like, oh, cool.
exactly,
There's an easier way to do this. So next time I know versus, oh, you dumb motherfucker, you did it wrong.
exactly. Yeah. So when you're doing back to your Reiki things, I keep going back. So when you're practicing Reiki though, so I know people try like I've heard of people doing this. I don't know if it actually is functional or not, but doing Reiki, practicing it over the computer, over Zoom. Is that something that people do? Is that
Absolutely.
effective?
So
Okay.
there is something called distance Reiki.
Okay.
Again, this is an area I struggle with because
Hmm.
of being able to quantify it. Um, at the same time, I do it all the time, right? So if somebody in my circle is like, "Hey, I'm not feeling well," or something happens, recently somebody shared with me they wanted me to send some Reiki to a loved one to just give them some protection during a difficult time when they're in a dangerous place.
Hmm.
And so, it was okay. But I'm going to do that, of course, because it doesn't. Again, I don't know. I can't quantify what effect it has, but it costs me nothing, right?
Hmm.
I'm just going to sit. I'm gonna take the time and set the intention to just send love, protection, and healing to an individual.
Hmm.
Um, from my understanding, I just need to be able to kind of envision or set the intention. So it supports to have their name and a photo.
Okay.
And again, that's supportive, but it's always also not necessary. I've sent Reiki to people I've never met or I don't know who they are. It's just like this person's husband or this person's right? Like whatever the step ladder is of how they're connected, it's just like I'm gonna send it out into the universe and hopefully it gets to the right person. And if not, it's gonna go somewhere, right? I'm
Hmm.
sending just good intentions out. Um, but there are people that can do right, like virtual Reiki.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my sessions with my coaching is through a video call. And again, there's still an energy transfer, right? So
Hmm.
even during this call, you and I being very intentionally here and present with each other in this conversation, there is energy flowing back and forth
Hmm.
because Reiki itself can transcend time and space. So I can
Hmm.
actually do both distance Reiki and future and past Reiki. I could do Reiki on like my younger self or my future self or whatever, right? This we're getting into like some quantum physics type shit, but
Yeah. I'm
it's possible.
I'm very curious about that actually, but yeah, I'm wondering. Real quick before we move forward I'm wondering though. This is a more functional question, and then maybe can disclose or not. But like, in terms of like the way you describe, where you can do Reiki for like someone's husband or someone's sister, something like that, right? Are you channeling Reiki through the person you know, then to the other person, or does it go directly?
I can't give you like the answer. I can
Mhm.
give you what like in my mind is happening. So let's say you asked me to send Reiki to your wife
Okay.
or your fiance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I would like if you didn't tell me her name and send me a picture, I would just think of okay, I want to be intentional and send just love, healing, and light to Drew's wife, and I think I would just envision you guys being present next to each other.
Okay.
Because what I typically do, right? If I were to send Reiki to you, and let's say you had a cold or something and you were in bed, I would just imagine as if I was in the room with you,
Hmm.
and then I would be sending it the same way I would if I was actually physically there. The
Right.
distinction with this, like a third party, then is just like I think that's the visualization for me. I'm just
Yeah.
envisioning you together, and
Hmm.
I don't know what they look like, so it's kind of this silhouetted shadow version of
Of
whoever
her.
that person is. To be like, okay, I can visualize you. I know your name, and I'm just going to tap in to be like, shift it one space over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just my practice. Now,
Interesting.
what's super interesting too, in the way that my teacher has taught us, is that it's a very Western ideology to want to know how to do Reiki, right? It's like, I want her to tell me, what do I think? Where do I put my hands? Like, tell me the mechanics of the thing.
Right.
She's always just like, what feels right? What's intuitive to you? And then
Mm.
do that. Because it's less about the format and the thing that you're doing, and more about the ability to visualize and set the intention, and then just kind of performing it, right?
Mhm.
How do I describe this? It's
No,
such a unique kind of thing.
I mean, I think what you're saying, I think what you're saying actually makes sense to me. I'm just what I'm if I look weird, I'm just processing because I'm thinking about it in terms of like the curiosity I have is actually before that. Then so then it's become okay. What's the distinction between someone like let's say not obviously not master, but like a level one like person who just was learning how to do Reiki versus someone who has no idea about it. If it's because like you, I think I'm thinking maybe thinking Western in a Western way. Like I want to know how I would do it, right? So is the teaching process or the learning process what must that be like if there's no mechanics behind it?
It's yeah. So
And maybe you can't answer that question. So I'm sorry, that was a weird question to ask, but I'm just
so I can share from my perspective, and
sure.
anybody listening, this is not coming from a Reiki master. Me myself, I have only completed level 1.
Hmm.
At the same time, this goes back to like making things hard on ourselves, right?
Yeah,
So
which is
um
I'm making it hard on you now, so I apologize,
no,
dude.
no, no, not at all. Because it's again, right? Like certain things are easier for me than the person next to me. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is when I connected with her and I shared kind of my introduction to Reiki, which if we have time, I would love to talk about that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, there's she was just like, you have a gift, like more so than other people that are coming to her to learn Reiki. It's like there's something different or unique or embedded in me that has been there for a very long time. So she always tells me, she's like, even though you've only completed level 1, you're operating at master level, right? That's why I'm
Wow.
comfortable with putting Reiki practitioner on my business cards, because
Mhm.
I'm able to create results for people. Um, again, it's the self kind of doubt really creeps in, and I have to juggle that. But at the same time, having those notes that I've kept, I have created some really, really cool results.
Yeah.
Now, what happens typically is when somebody steps into Reiki practice, right? This is why I don't want to just teach you all the things that I know. It's like the average person goes through an activation. So
Mhm.
a Reiki master will put you through an activation to kind of essentially have you open the door and say, I welcome the ability to do this, and I want to step into that world and the to play with that energy.
Mhm.
She said for me it was different. I didn't have to go through the same activation that the other people in my class had to. There was a level of difference because number one, I'm a Japanese American, so the Japanese lineage in me supported with that. Not to
Mhm.
say that Japanese people don't have to go through the activation, right? Because my dad actually studied with the Reiki master in Japan. He went through an
Oh, wow.
activation with her. And so again, I'm not sure which parts of my journey have been distinctly unique to me, distinctly unique to a Japanese individual, distinctly unique to a Japanese American, right? So there's a lot of this that I'm uncertain about, and it's just like I'm sure of what I'm able to do at this moment in time, and I
Mhm.
know there's a bunch more for me to learn.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah. So in terms of kind of the average person versus somebody that's done level 1, there is an activation, and there are set practices that you learn, right? So how to do X, Y, and Z. There
Mhm.
is certain aspects of like this is kind of the way to do it, and also there's flexibility, right? So think of it this way: to drive a car, the recommendation is 10 and 2, right? You hold the wheel
Right.
here. Every unique individual does it a different way, but we're all still driving a car, right? It's like
Right.
one-handed, somebody maybe hold at the bottom, whatever you choose to do, you're still going to get to where you're going, but there is within the framework, right? You still have to steer the car, but how
Yeah.
you choose to do it, if you want to use your knee, you can do that, right? So it's like how you choose to kind of follow the basic principles is up to the individual. And that's what she
Mhm.
means by like trust your intuition. And it's been what was so cool was as we were learning different aspects of Reiki, I'm like, "Oh shit, I did that last week before you taught us that."
Mhm.
It just came to me. So it was like, oh, like it's affirmations for me. Like this has been something that's not new to me, even though I just formally started practicing this early 2023.
Yeah. That's really interesting because as you were talking, especially the last part, I started visualizing and thinking about from a different lens, from the coaching lens. That's how coaching
Mm.
was for me, right? And that's how I teach it now. Is like I'm not going to tell you exactly what to say, right? It's not about the exact words you use. It's about helping a client get to a certain level or having a conversation with a certain client or, like, because we already know how to speak, right? The parallel I'm drawing is this. We already know how to speak, right? So you know how to have a conversation with someone. You know how to ask a question. It's just about
Yeah,
framing that question the right way to elicit to get the client to open up and talk with you and building that relationship. And so I almost think when you're talking about Reiki, it sounds like it's almost like that, except like speaking with energy as opposed to speaking with words.
absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I love about both, right? This is what I love about coaching is because it's not cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Like with one client, I can't just apply the same information and conversation to the next one. It's like they're unique individuals
Yep.
and I get to solve the puzzle of both of them. How do I support you with getting to your goal? Because your roadblocks, your self-sabotage is unique to you versus the other person.
Hmm.
And that's what I love about this, where I'm not doing the same thing every day. Each client is a unique puzzle to solve. The
Yeah.
same way with Reiki, it's like these new aspects that get introduced for me. It's like, oh, I get to figure that out for me. What do I want my process to be?
Yeah.
And then it supports me with kind of that analytical thinking to be like, what's the right way? It's like I get to put that down to be like, there isn't a right way. What is going to be the most effective that I feel?
Yeah.
Um, and
I
yeah,
love that.
so
That's cool.
I gotta let's see. I know there's a couple things from before that I wanted to touch on. So
Yeah.
I'll
This
leave that to
how you got introduced to Reiki is one of the stories you want to tell, right?
okay, yeah. Oh, this is
Yeah.
fun because you and I like this. So it started with a recreational psilocybin trip. I was just I was with two of my homegirls and we were just like tripping balls and we're like, I feel something, guys, right? Like we were very much connected energetically, right? We would
Yeah.
vibe on the same frequency, and it was like we had these moments of like, yo, like there's something, and it was just like, I want to try something, guys, because I keep feeling this energy, right? And I already knew I was an empath. I was able to kind of feel things other people were feeling, and I'm like, there's something more here. I want to kind of entertain it or play with it.
Hmm.
And so we were laying down and I had one friend on my side and I was just like, "Hey, I'm going to try something and just lay there." And so I ran my hands over her and I imagined as though I was like dripping white healing light onto her body and I went over and I
Hmm.
scanned. And then when I finished I was like, "Hey, what did that feel like?" She's like, "It felt like there was like rain falling on me, like this
Wow.
white light of." And I was like, "Holy shit, like that's what I was trying to do." And so then I went to my other friend and I was like, "Okay, placebo effect." At first I was
Yeah.
going to do the same thing, but I was like, "Let me change kind of the intention." So then
Hmm.
I was like, I thought of it kind of like like a printer, how you can do a scanner. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
imagined like a bar of light and like scanning her body and sending this, just love and healing light to her. And when I finished, she's like, "Yeah, it felt like I was getting scanned with like an X-ray type thing." And I was like, "Holy shit, like there's something here." And then I freaked out because I was like, "What are we playing with, guys? Like, like, is this like witchcraft? Like, what did we just
Yeah.
open the portal? Like, what's going on?" And
It's the
then
beginning of a horror movie.
yeah, I started to talk about it more because I was scared about it, right? Like, I didn't know what we were playing with. And that's
Yeah.
how somebody introduced me to my Reiki master. Because it's like, hey, that
Mhm.
sounds like energy work. It sounds like you're tapping into this. When I described it to her, she's like, yeah, dude, you're doing Reiki. And that's where it was like, oh, okay, like this has been, it's not something new to me. And so it's been interesting to have that kind of open up for me. And I found that with psilocybin, it does kind of open up and connect me to a deeper level of it where
Mm.
it's not that I'm able to perform it better, but like I feel like I'm more open consciously to more downloads and information. And I do get like waves or hits of like energy bursts kind of coming in
Mhm.
during a trip. That and then again for when I'm performing Reiki, there's the ability, like part of the process is you do kind of like a charge up, right? You absorb energy from around you to then push into your client or whoever you're working on.
Yeah.
um, and so it's pretty cool, but for me it started with a psilocybin trip.
That's super fascinating. I love that so much. Well, no, because it's funny you say that, right? Because I've been under the influence of psilocybin before and felt differently in terms of interacting with different people. Like I was
Mm,
definitely more open to energy or to more. I don't want to say that. Well, yes, but yes, and I was also more sensitive to energy, right?
Yeah.
On,
Yep.
on when I was in that state, and it was really interesting because we talked about halos last time we talked, and I didn't connect it to like right now, but I do see an element of halo. I wouldn't call it a halo. It's just I see you light differently, right? And I see light in places that you don't always see light when I'm on in that state, which is really because it's really cool because it's like thinking back on it, it's always around certain types of situations as well, like particularly positive situations have a certain energy about them, and that energy for me, I see it as a little more light. Things that are more dull are just they're just dull. They don't have a darkness, but they don't have a light to them. You know what I mean? It's just
It's
there's
kind of like
there.
a matte, like it absorbs the light and it doesn't reflect it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's not darker. It's just there, right? It's just not
Yeah.
as
Okay.
bright as something else that's positive for me, at least when I see it. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the next time you're playing around with it, be intentional and see if you can pick up on things and just be aware of, right, like that sensation or any of the visuals, because it is a trip when we like psilocybin is so amazing in the way that it opens up the consciousness, but
Hmm.
also I think it creates a different perspective for us to really connect to what we're used to versus what's actually there, right? So
Mm.
we're getting a little philosophical here, but like the five senses of a human, right? It's like we can see, smell, taste, hear, and feel,
Hmm.
but it's like what other senses exist, right? So then we talk about like the sixth sense, or
Yep.
like being able to use your third eye to intuitively connect to things, and it's like what's to say we don't all have that, but we're not used to it, right? Like mm, let's say you walked around your whole life and your nose was clogged, so then
Hmm.
you didn't have the same perception of the ability to smell. Then one day it just opens up and you're like, oh shit, like I have this new ability. So I'm curious
Yeah.
as to like what other things exist inside of us that we're not able to tap into, and I think that's one of them, where the ability to really, again, like I don't know the verbiage for it, but like sense energy, right?
Yeah.
um so
I
yeah.
think I think about it like other frequencies, right? Like we can't
Yeah.
see every frequency of light, so and we can't hear every frequency of sound. Like imagine what that would be like if you could see additional frequencies that dogs and cats could see, or hear
Oh
additional
yeah.
frequencies, or smell. Because again, they smell too. They have like what, a million,
Heightened.
or I think it's 1,000 times more sensitive noses than we do. So they smell the world more so than they see it, which is because they're like going out in the yard drinking, I'm not drinking. We're going out drinking. They're going out smelling and relaxing, and they're having a more fun out there smelling something than we are like going out and talking and hanging out. Because the
Yeah,
way we interact with the world is different. But you
absolutely.
watch Bleach by chance, anime?
I haven't finished it. I've gotten.
Okay. The more they just released like thousand year blood war, the future stuff like later on, like the last installments from Kubo in the
Okay.
manga. They just released it
I haven't
in
caught up
anime
yet.
form, so it's crazy, it's insane. That's really really cool. But I can't, I don't want to spoil it now, so I can't tell you this part. Okay, never mind. We'll skip that
God
until
damn it!
after you finish it. But
But it is so true, right?
it has to do with frequencies, like different frequencies of things you can't see. But yeah, you were saying.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, like, right, like we talk about like ghosts and things, and like that sixth sense from the what's his name, Bruce Willis movies,
Bruce
right?
Willis
Where
movie,
like
yeah.
I can see dead people or
The Sixth
spirits
Sense,
or
yeah.
entities, or it could be energy, right? Like what happens to a human being when they pass from their physical existence, right? Like that energy, I feel like would turn into something else. And
Yeah.
if somebody has those heightened abilities, like, can you see that? And then where does it go? Right. So depending on your belief system, right? Is it heaven and hell, reincarnation? Does it just go into the ether? Like what
Yeah.
happens to it? And it's so interesting to like, if you had the ability to perceive those things, you may be like that kid and be like, I see dead people. And maybe it's not like an actual person like it's depicted in Hollywood, but maybe it's energy, right? Maybe
Yeah.
it's something like that. So it's so trippy because right. Well, I don't even know what level do we operate in 4D right now. Raising the consciousness will bring us to 5D.
I think so. The thing you sent me today. Let me take a look real quick. Yeah, because that was really cool actually.
There's
I
like
get this on
12
WhatsApp,
dimensions.
right?
I think I sent to you an email actually.
Oh, was it email? Crap. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's like, yeah, because there's 10th dimensions, right? The 10th dimension is like the highest one we can't ever achieve, something like that, right?
it's something ridiculous where it's like most of us are operating in 4D, right?
Yeah, something like
And
that.
so like what unlocks in our perceptive abilities as you reach those other dimensions. And then it's like all of them layered over each other, right? So in the space I'm in right now, if there's a smell that wafts in here, I
Yeah,
can't see it, but I can sense it, right? It's still
exactly.
there. So it's like, what are the other, what, like 7 dimensions that I can't sense?
Right. Yeah, we're in the fourth dimension right now, like you said. So that's based on the thing you sent me earlier today. Yeah, we're fourth dimension, and then I think fifth is like the self realization level, and then 12th. Sorry, it goes to the 12th dimensions, which is really kind of cool. But yeah, there's definitely stuff we can't see. I mean, look at all the accounts of like, I mean, I believe in paranormal stuff. Well, now we're getting totally off. This is totally the podcast at this point, but that's fine. Um,
This is
but
like most of our conversations.
yeah, pretty much. This is how for everyone watching. This is how our conversations typically go. So you're welcome. um, this the whole paranormal thing, right? Paranormal investigators and things people pick up, and things some people see, like the that famous psychic Edgar Casey. Did you hear about him?
No.
I think he was like the 1920s or something like that, but he was one of the more famous like psychics out there who was like proven and seen stuff. Obviously, he couldn't control it, and so like he'd say sometimes you'd see like auras around people, and like they appeared as actual lights, different color lights around people, and to the point where he could tell when someone was about to die. And so he's like getting on an
Ooh.
elevator, and he saw that everyone in the elevator had like a really dark, like ominous aura, and he said, "Oh, I'll take the next one." He got off, the elevator crashed, and they died.
I've heard that story, yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Whew.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Ah,
in my lifetime, I've come across some really, really unique and interesting individuals. Um, and it's like, stuff that I can't explain other than what they've said was just the truth, right? Like what they've
yeah,
shared is 100%. Like there's no other way you could have known this shit.
right.
There was a girl that I dated, and her friend was clairvoyant, and
Wow.
we weren't official, but it was, we were kind of in a relationship, but I was justifying my own actions because we weren't official. I was talking to other people. So one day
Sure.
her friend texts me. She's like, I can see you. I know what you're doing, and you're fucking around with this other girl. I'm like, you're in a different state. Like, none of my friends. This is not on social media. The only way you could know this is connecting to some clairvoyant shit. And it was like, whoa, like it was a trip. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So it's like
that's
there's
it.
there's a lot out there that we don't know. And again, it's like just because I can't doesn't mean someone else can't. So I operate with that where it's like, hey, if you say it's true, I believe you.
I mean, there's some people you can't deny like that's whether it's true or not, that's how they experienced it, right?
Yeah.
And what's real is, perception is reality, right? If you see something that way, then that's real to you. And so, but I think people definitely have those abilities. That situation, she could have been just texting you just out of the blue just to see what happens, because her girlfriend was paranoid, but not. No.
No,
It's
it was like pages. I remember I
oh
was like,
wow,
whoa, right? And it was like some spot on, and I was like, I couldn't even say anything. I called and apologized. It was like, hey, your friend's right, but like this is what's happening. It was just like, fuck, like there was no explanation I could come up with, and it was
that's
just it was amazing. It was
yeah,
scary.
that's yeah, oh yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, but hey, I mean, I definitely think stuff like that exists. Like a really good friend of mine is he's a videographer, and he's out here and he's done a couple different documentaries. One of them was on near death experiences, where he
Hmm.
like interviewed different people who had the near death experience. And this one guy told a story about how he saw himself. He floated outside his body. Basically, he's like had an out of body experience, saw his body, and then went into the wait like was like floating into the waiting room, and saw exactly what different people were wearing, right? And then he could describe it. He wasn't even out in the waiting room. No, like people had come because he had a heart attack at the hospital or something like that. Like no, he got into a car accident, I think, and he was like at the hospital. He hadn't seen anyone that day who was there, and he described what they were wearing, which is nuts. And
When
he
he
didn't
woke up,
see.
yeah,
Yeah, he was talking about what they were wearing and stuff like that, and then they had no way. He had no way of knowing that stuff.
yeah.
It was crazy.
It's such a trip, yeah. Like human beings are incredible, and I think we play small, or we're just like a lot of it through society and what the matrix we're in, right? There's a lot of stuff that's been just kind of removed, or uh, it gets a bad rap, so then people are just we write it off. But the
Yeah.
truth of it is like it's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. And the capabilities we have as humans are and we're only to this day we still only know how to use 10% of our brains.
Yeah.
Right. What happens to what about the other 90% of our brains? You know, like that movie Lucy or Limitless or any of these
Limitless.
other movies that exist, right? Like they're phenomenal, and they're really interesting because you hear about these people who had these amazing abilities back in the day. I mean, all these like we grew up hearing about all these like Indian mythology type things, right?
Mm.
About these amazing characters who are like, oh, it's a mythology, it's just like an allegory or whatever. And I'm sure like 50 to 70% of it, maybe even 80 or 90% of it is, but everything starts somewhere, right? That there's some element of something that we don't know or we haven't acknowledged yet. I mean, look at the pyramids, dude. Like they were built in such extreme detail, like down to the calculations that we can't even do with calculators nowadays. These people were
With the
doing
technology we have today, yeah.
right,
It's
and
it's
it
it's interesting.
super
Another
interesting.
one, like a I guess conspiracy theory, right? It originates somewhere, but the mythology of like dragons, right? So
Yeah.
many cultures have that
Hmm.
ingrained in like their ancient history. It's like, okay, is there some truth to it? And at the
Yeah.
same time, right? Like a dragon is not that far off from a dinosaur, so why not?
Right. That's what I thought. I grew up thinking that. I grew up thinking like Godzilla and T-Rex were like cousins. Like as a kid, I was like, oh, they're so similar. What one breathes fire, the other one doesn't. Like whatever. But I mean, is it that far off, really? I mean, like I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I'm not getting to the point where I'm definitely not anywhere near the flat Earth world. But in terms of things that are plausible and that could make sense, there being some group of people in the world who know more than they're letting on, right?
Yeah.
And these systems we created for ourselves that you know conveniently limit us in certain ways. It is very convenient situation is convenient, right? It's like I
You
don't know.
do you watch Rick and Morty?
I watched a couple of. I need to watch I need to get into and actually watch it because I've heard a
It's
lot of people talk about it.
Yeah, it gets pretty deep and it does a good job of describing like theoretical concepts because it's a cartoon. So they're able to
Mhm.
depict it in many different ways.
Nice.
So there's a lot in there that's just like, oh wow, right? I never thought of it that way. Or it's so cool kind of to see some of my inner thoughts artistically brought up, right? So like I don't like Hollywood alien movies because all aliens in the movies are humanoid, right? Because they
Yeah.
want an actor to play it. It's like they typically have a face, a nose, right? Even the ones that are like crazy, it's still like similar functions as a person.
Right.
Whereas like, again, talking about all these dimensions, what if an alien is something we can't even perceive, right? Like it's some
Well, it's
type
kind
of
of like that.
another
That was the
thing.
coolest part of Bird Box for me, right? Do
I
you
haven't
see
watched
Bird
Bird.
Box?
Is that the
Actually,
Sandra Bullock?
yeah, it actually sucked, but it's like the only cool part about it was the concept of the aliens. The fact that we can't, like, the execution was horrible. It was just bad. But the
Okay.
concept of like certain people can see themselves, certain people can't until you see them, then you see them, then you die. Basically like you want to kill yourself or whatever, or go nuts. And only certain people, like people who are insane and could see them, don't go insane. They don't go any more insane. They just already are insane. They can perceive them or whatever. But
Oh,
it's just
interesting.
we really like at least that's what I took from the movie. I don't know. They didn't actually describe what things look like, but they just like everyone sees something different. It seems like, right? It seems like some certain people saw, like one girl saw her mother and got depressed and killed herself. Whatever. But everyone perceives it differently. To your point, what if that's what they look like? What if they look like a mist? Like what if they look like
Yeah.
just nothing, right? What if they're like actually invisible, like the predator or something? Like it's just there's so many
Yeah.
possibilities, and we do limit it ourselves in Hollywood, right? Like did you watch Jordan Peele's movie? The one just came out. Uh, Nope. It's called Nope.
No. I haven't seen it.
Also not good, but it started out really good. The potential was really there for it, but the way the alien looks is it's kind of ridiculous. But it's that part of it is interesting, right? The fact that again it
Mm.
could look like we don't know what it looks like. So I mean, if you plan to watch it, I won't tell you the secret, but
I don't think so. So if you want to share.
the ship is the alien. They think it's a ship. It's actually the alien.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And so
Oh, that's pretty cool.
it's shaped like a flying saucer thing, but it's actually an amorphous thing,
Yeah.
and it changes shape into like this like cloud like thing and into like looks like a sheet. It's really interesting. That part
Oh,
of it is
cool.
interesting, but the
Yeah.
movie itself was just stupid.
I
I
like
think,
that concept though, because that's
yeah.
very much like what my thought process is, right? Like we don't know what aliens are.
Yeah, and in fact, we also don't know what God is, right? Like, or what that higher power out there might may or may not be, right? Like, I think that's also true. And along the same lines, what if God, whatever that higher power is, the same across the world, and everyone just perceives it differently, and we're fighting over the same shit.
I believe that is probably the case of our existence, and yes.
Yeah.
Um, so Rick and Morty does a good job where there's an episode where um, Rick creates like a sub universe that becomes essentially just like a source of power. It becomes his battery pack for all his technology and shit, right? But
Okay.
it's really like an entire universe that has like a whole species that their society just operating
Hmm.
fuels his stuff. And then it's like to think, right? Like we don't know how expansive the universe is, where we could be a grain of sand in a
Yep.
much bigger cog, right? So it's like, and at the same time, the things we've created could also be like that subdivision of a thing, right? So it's like,
Right.
like the Sims. We
Yeah.
created the Sims as a program, but what if they actually believe their own existence, right? Or any of the games that exist or anything that humans have created, it creates these sub levels of
Yeah.
consciousness and interacting things where it's like, what if we are also something that something else created? And so, well, there's just so many thoughts coming out right now, but you get where I'm
Yeah.
going.
No, I mean, there's a bunch of movies because I do movies. It's always all these movies that come to mind. Last Action Hero, that concept with Arnold Schwarzenegger. You watched that one?
I feel like I have. Remind me of the plot.
So he plays like, so the movie takes place within another movie, and it's like
Okay.
he plays this as action hero in in this kid's like world, basically. And the kid like loves watching his movies, so he goes to goes to theater, turns his magic ticket, and ends up inside the movie with his hero, who's Arnold Schwarzenegger. And
Okay.
he's
Yeah.
like this over the top action hero world where he can't die, and no matter whatever dumb shit he does, he never dies. He just does crazy stuff. And to him, he's like, there's a conversation where they have in the movie, which is like super meta, but it's really interesting. And he goes, he's like, I started doing these things and I just kept surviving. And, and then, but then there's like a tragic part of it too. And then he's like, and then suddenly out of nowhere, my son gets killed and blah, blah, blah. And like, and
Mhm.
it's like, and it's just like, I, that happened because someone wanted to entertain someone else. And he gets depressed, kind of sad, but
Oh, because it was part of the game or like the
because part of the
storyline of
movie. Yeah.
yeah,
It's part of his movie. And it's like, it takes place in his world. And so it's just like really interesting because it goes along the line of what you just said, right? What are we creating every time we create a new story or create a new video game? Are we creating a whole nother world that exists now on its own that we're just not aware of?
oh man, with the introduction to AI too, like
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah.
there's that game where players can go in and create their own like planet, right?
Hmm.
Have you heard of that one?
I haven't
Forget
heard
the
of
name.
that.
Um, it's I don't know how it works, but I know that it's like I think you can fly around and you can visit other planets, but it's just like this expansively created thing, and it's like, what's to say that's not the universe we live in to somebody else, right?
Have you read Ready Player One?
I've watched the movie.
Movie's trash. You gotta read the book. The book is
Okay,
actually phenomenal. Um,
really?
it's so much better than the movie, dude. Because I think you'll appreciate the book actually a lot more. Because I did an audiobook when I drove cross country, both part one and
Mm.
part two. Because Ready Player Two is out too.
Oh shit.
But the book is so much. It goes so much deeper. Like it's a lot more. First of all, it's a lot more 80s references and not as many the kind of like more common stuff, right? There's
Okay.
also a lot more anime references, which is interesting too.
Oh,
Because
cool.
you know,
There's a lot of
80s
Easter
is.
eggs in the movie.
Oh yeah, there's a ton, and there's even more. So the whole thing is about Easter eggs, right? So the entire game, the entire movie, sorry, video
Book.
book is about the Easter eggs that are in video games, and so it's all 80s video games, 80s and like early 80s, late 80s video games that he has to play to get through the Easter eggs. And
Okay.
it's not like small. It's like there's not like a simple one like a race. It's like really like
Mm,
niche, complex video game, which is really cool. It's like it's an ode to nerds. That whole book is an ode to nerds. It really is.
nice.
Yeah. So we're way over time. Sorry, man. Okay, we planned, but it's a good time.
Again, this is
Um,
like our call, so it's I'm
yeah,
having fun.
yeah. No, me too, dude. Absolutely. Thanks again, man, for doing this.
Yeah,
And
no, pleasure.
anything you want to leave folks with before you say that,
I forgot we were
because
talking about Reiki.
yeah, I know, right? Before we end that question, I always have a question I have to ask everybody. So, and this will be interesting. So, for you, who as a person, or what as in like book, movie, TV show, has been the biggest influence on you in your career, and who you've been and become so far?
Wow. You know what?
Hmm.
I think it would be Rurouni Kenshin.
Really? Okay.
The duality that exists in him is something
Hmm.
that I carry. The ability to come at things from, yeah, it's, oh, that's interesting. I have never put this together. Like, this is all unraveling for me right now.
Okay.
There is a lot of parallels in how I operate, right? So taking my past, right? Like, Samurai X, where it's like he used to be like the most crazy like assassin during
So
the.
I haven't seen Rurouni Kenshin. I need to go again. In like 20, 30 years. I only watched like one episode way back when I was younger.
Oh shit. Okay, so he went from like a highly decorated, the most feared like assassin samurai,
Hmm.
to just having this shift of like he literally turned his sword around. So you know how a sword is typically on the front there's a blade, and on the rear it's dulled, right?
Yeah.
It's so he had somebody create a sword for him that's reversed.
Oh wow.
So the front is dull, and then the rear that faces him is actually the blade.
Hmm.
So when he gets into fights, he doesn't intend to kill anybody. He made a vow after he left his occupation as like an assassin to no longer take a life.
Yeah.
And so he used his past and everything he did in his past that he was ashamed of, or all of the negative in his life, as a lesson moving forward, and then created a new life for himself. So I feel
Hmm.
like I've done that as well, where it's like especially when we're talking about my past relationship, I've done a lot of shit that I'm not proud of. I've,
Yeah.
and just through life, like my own self-sabotage and all these things, I've taken all of that and turned it into lessons for myself that I now bring to my clients and anybody that I interact with, where it's like, how can you learn from yourself, right? Self-development, self-awareness, so that you don't make the same mistakes. And there's that duality of, I am, right, a Reiki practitioner. I everything I do, I try to come from love and light and just positive high vibrations.
Hmm.
At the same time, I have an affinity for just weapons. So growing up, Power Rangers was my jam. um, I collect knives. I
Hmm.
used to do, when I started out my photography journey, I would do a photo a day, and I was just taking pictures of the knives that I had. And then Cold Steel Knives, the company, reached out to
Yeah.
me, and they were like, "Hey, we love your shots. We're gonna just send you care packages and take photos for us, and keep the shit when you're done." So I have this massive collection of all kinds of different blades and stuff. And then I
That's
took
awesome.
that same kind of platform, and I brought that to firearms, where it's like I worked at a firearm shop for a period of time. I did a lot of product shots for them, and I was getting everything at cost. So, and I've done a lot of training, right?
Hmm.
And the training that I've done is really for self defense, or to
Right.
protect what I love. It's not to take a life, but at the same time, it's like, if it came down to it, right? I believe that I'm capable of extreme violence under the right circumstances, the same way Rurouni Kenshin is, where it's like he carries a sword, but it's a dull blade, right?
Yeah.
It's like I carry myself in a way that's like, I don't ever want to hurt anybody, but if it comes to the lives of the people I care about and somebody else, like, I will jump into action. And so
Hmm.
that has been like a role model in the way that I operate, based on, like I used to read his comics, the anime. So
Yeah.
it's interesting because he has this mode where he kind of flips on and off, where he's in battle mode, right?
Hmm.
It's like if somebody were to actually threaten people I care about, I become a different person. At the same time, at the root of it, it's like I'm still me, right?
Yeah.
And again, this comes from my own experiences, right? Like I've had, when I lived in San Diego, my home was shot up, and
Hmm.
first thing I did was I ran to my room and I grabbed, my gun, and I ran down to protect the people that were at my house.
Yeah.
Luckily, that person had fled already. Nobody was, severely hurt, so nothing happened. But it was like the mindset I had was, I got to protect people, right? And so with
Yeah.
with so much violence and negativity in the world today, it's like I used to walk around in fear, right? Now I'm coming at it from a different angle, right? Like, I have high empathy for people. And it's just like, hey, what's really going on? Like, why are you projecting these insecurities, this anger, this frustration? Like, I want to know what's at the root of it so that we can support each other as human beings, right?
Yeah.
There's ways that we can support each other and heal each other. Again, right, with Reiki, it's like we can literally heal each other.
Yeah.
Like if I was not like in my circle, like of all my friends, I'm the only Reiki practitioner. I've
Mhm.
met other Reiki practitioners now, but again, if all of my friends knew how to do Reiki, we could literally heal each other, right? If everyone on my block knew how to do Reiki, we wouldn't need all this external shit anymore. So it's like, how do we spread that awareness and that knowledge and come from this place of this was how it used to be, and there's something new moving forward, right? Putting down the past of, his assassin lifestyle and then looking at how do I make a change and be impactful with the tools I have now moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's my answer.
Fucking love that. That's awesome, dude. Have you watched Gintama?
Sounds familiar.
It's the main character Gintoki actually has a very similar. He uses actually uses a kendo sword. He doesn't use a real sword.
Okay.
He uses a wood sword.
No, I'm
Uh,
familiar with the the name, but I haven't watched that one.
okay, it's actually more of a comedy. It's hysterical actually, but
Okay.
they have serious parts too. Like I mean, they like it's like most anime, right? It's just flipped. So instead of like mostly really action, then some funny parts, it's mostly funny and then some action parts,
Oh, cool.
like kind
Okay.
of
Yeah.
deeper parts too. But it's a similar thing. He was an old soldier basically. He was a warrior before. He was a samurai, and he doesn't want to kill anymore basically. And
Yeah.
so it's really really fascinating. That's actually pretty cool, dude. I like that answer a lot. Deeper than most people have given. So I appreciate it. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I would never want to take a life, but
Yeah.
I have CCWs for multiple states. California doesn't recognize them, but I got that for the intention of protecting the people that I'm around.
Yeah.
Um, and again, just operating from that place of I really hope that I would never need it, but I would rather have it and not need it
Oh
than
yeah.
need it and not have it.
I had this conversation with someone over the weekend, and we were talking about guns and stuff, and it's just I don't think gun control is what we need. We need people control. Right? We need to educate people about guns, so
Absolutely.
it's not a bad word, and make it harder to get them in the sense of just background checks. Fine, an education, right? You require both. It's like a license. Just have a license. You know what I mean? Where it's like I just feel like don't make it something where it's like a bad word. It's like evil. Or it's because it's not. No tool is evil by itself.
Education on it, right? Like
Yeah,
so that accidents don't happen, so people
yeah,
know about it. And yeah, it's funny because the my solution to it is the only way you should be able to buy a gun is if you can have 5 people sign off, like 5 people in your circle of friends, right? Like,
yeah.
yeah, this person is qualified, right?
I love
If
that.
you don't have 5 people that'll vouch for you that you should own a gun, then maybe you shouldn't own a gun, right?
Yeah, they're
That's
not
that's
family.
one way. And again, people are gonna hate me for saying that, but it's just like I don't have the solution, right? And I know it's
No.
not stricter gun control. When you change the laws around what you're allowed to own,
Yeah.
it doesn't stop the criminals, right?
No, it doesn't.
Like the guy down the street he's gonna have all of his shit, whatever he wants it to be, because he already doesn't care about the laws, right?
Right.
You're yeah. This
No,
this went all over the place, man.
it did. It really did, man. But I love it. I appreciate it. May only end up sharing part of this. We'll see. I mean, the probably the kid friendly parts. But honestly, I actually love this conversation though. So this is great. I might have like an an a Dhru Bee late nights conversations one. So oh man, but
You,
good times, dude.
did you call yourself Dhru Bee? I like that.
Yeah, it's Doctor. My channel is Doctor Dhru Bee or
Oh,
Dhru Bee. I can't remember
I
actually.
heard Droopy, like like the dog
Oh
Droopy.
yeah. Oh boy, that guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Droopy. Yeah.
Oh man, good stuff, dude. Jeff, thanks again, man. I appreciate it. Anyone who's interested about Reiki who are still watching, still listening, please reach out to Jeff. His information is going to be below. I'm just going to cut to that part basically. Thanks again, man. I appreciate it. So
Oh yeah.
good
No,
times.
anytime. This was a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks so much, Drew. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care. See you, man.
All right, you too.
Stay
Later,
stay
bro.
on actually, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
end the recording.